Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are currently in the world. Welcome to today's sharing of Harmonize2Energize. My name is Terry Matthews. I've been a JIN SHIN JYUTSU practitioner for some 30 years and practiced and taught self-help both in England and at the Scottsdale office that was in JIN SHIN JYUTSU Incorporated. So welcome everybody, and a warm welcome to anyone who's completely new to the art of JIN SHIN JYUTSU. JIN SHIN JYUTSU is an art, and it's an art of harmonizing life energy, or sometimes described as chi or ki, as it moves through the body. And often enough, due to our thinking processes, our emotional responses, the weather, and all kinds of other conditions, that energy gets blocked. And with JIN SHIN JYUTSU, we use our hands, the palm of our hands, the back of our hands, our thumbs, and we place them on what we call safety energy locks. And there's 26 of them, which have significance and a numerological nature and the Japanese medicine nature. And they are placed left and right of the spine, including the arms. So today is yet another possibility to share in the wisdom and experience of one of the members of the International JIN SHIN JYUTSU community. Oh, 37F in Toronto. So without further ado, because I know you're all waiting on tenterhooks, perhaps, to see who this may be, let's see who today's mystery presenter is. Can you unmute and turn your camera on?
I can turn the camera on, and there we go.
There you go.
Hello.
Mermy.
This is Mark Hovis in the Central Time Zone in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Welcome, everybody. Well, thank you. I'm the chosen one for the day, and I'm here to share and to field comments and stories. I'll be happy to tell you a little bit about myself. 30 years ago, this month, like now, I was currently in my 15th year as an elementary school teacher. I was teaching second grade at that time. And I got a flyer in the mail from a local holistic health clinic, and it said something about self-help and something strange called JIN SHIN JYUTSU, which I'd never heard of before. Heard of something like it. It turns out that that was sort of a very poor spin-off of the real thing, which is JIN SHIN JYUTSU. So I went to this one-day workshop for self-help, and I was so impressed that the very next month I was on a plane to Scottsdale to be in a 5-day intensive class with wonderful Philomena Dooley. I had just turned 40, and I was off for a new adventure. And a year later, I left my teaching profession and began to work out of my house for a while. And then I got a little clinic to work at. And that's kind of my early start with following something that just made a lot of sense to me. I just love it. And I was so excited when I discovered JIN SHIN JYUTSU. And it's still an ongoing process of learning and growing and sharing. Let's see. At first, it was slow going, and this wasn't Southern California or the Northeast coast. It was going slow here in Tulsa. So I thought, well, I need a marketing plan. So about 2 or 3 years into my practice, a local couple in a nearby little town opened up a small acupuncture school. They took me through their 2-year course in acupuncture, And I later qualified to take the national certification exam in acupuncture, and I passed that. But having had a lot of teachings and learnings with JIN SHIN JYUTSU, I had several 5-day classes, had completed those by the time I finished my acupuncture school. And I'm telling you, the JIN SHIN JYUTSU world and its teachings made it much easier for me to understand what was being taught in acupuncture. And I'll get more into that a little bit later about the overlapping of many different therapies. And JIN SHIN JYUTSU is not an island. There are a few things that are amazingly, I would say, unique. The energy locks are all JIN SHIN JYUTSUs, and I've looked at many different modalities. And holding the fingers and the toes, for that matter, is it's all a style of its own with JIN SHIN JYUTSU. So let me start by just echoing the incredible healing advice of the master, the gentleman that put JIN SHIN JYUTSU together. He claims he didn't really invent it all. I think he did invent some of it because it's so unique, but he really pulled it together and created something that could be taught and could be practiced and could be learned. So Jiro Murai, Master Murai, he would advise Mary, and she shared that with others, to drop the shoulders and be the smile. Now, if you just soak that in for a moment, and I trust you are dropping your shoulders and being your smile. By dropping the shoulders, we really let go of a lot of tension in the body. Most of us have tight shoulders and tight necks. When I go on a walk, still, I've not taught myself to automatically have my shoulders dropped. I'm on a walk and I realize I'm holding my shoulders up while I'm walking. I mean, they don't go up to my ears, but there still is a certain amount of gripping those muscles. So it's a process of being aware of and letting go of those tight muscles. So in JIN SHIN JYUTSU, you may know, or you may not, but there's energy lock number 11 here at the base of the neck, where the neck and the body join. In 11, they refer to it as the hub. And that sounds like a pretty big title or name for something that's way up here. Why wouldn't the hub be down at your navel or your hips maybe? But this is the hub. So by releasing the tension in the neck and shoulders at the 11s, so much opens up above the body and below the body. So much relaxes and clears. By the way, in the 3 energy locks at the neck, there's the 11s and the 12s in the middle. And then there's the 4s at the top where the neck and the skull connect. And the 4s reflect the energy in the bust line, the 13s and the 10s. And then the 12s reflect the energy in the waistline. And the hub, the 11s, reflect the energy in the hip line. So anyway, you may know that, but I think that's what I've learned. And then the other part is being the smile. You really can't be angry or terribly selfish if you're being your smile. The smile creates an energy all its own, a very, very positive energy. I've heard of one therapy for depression, and it's been studied, and they find it's, maybe somewhat of a placebo effect, but it definitely works for depression, to look up and smile and hold that several times a day to clear some of the gloom and the dark clouds in your spirit. And if you look at therapies all throughout the East, around the world, they're really big into smiling. I mean, there's a lot of Qigong teachers who teach, some masters actually, that teach to smile into your body, to smile into your heart, and to your lungs, and to your colon, and to your spleen, and all your organs. Smile into your whole system. It does something special. So smile is very important, very powerful. I've not been to Thailand, but I've heard stories that everyone is just so smiling. I mean, there's just everyone's content, and they bring that into their culture, the power of the smile. So we can learn from that, the power of smile. So any comments on that? Any question, ideas? Nothing. Okay. Also, of course, I grabbed hold of JIN SHIN JYUTSU 30 years ago because it said self-help. Lately, I've been seeing sort of a nice substitute for that phrase, as in self-care. And I think with self-help or self-care, it's something we have to learn to be disciplined about and care enough for ourselves to slow down, to just turn everything off, go sit in a quiet corner or lie down if you like, and just work on the energy locks yourself. Have that peace of mind and that peaceful space, and give yourself that time to recharge and clear the congestions. About a year, maybe it was a year and a half ago, I had a little dose of the COVID. I had tested myself and I had this COVID-19, and it wasn't debilitating at all, except for the first night. And the first night I didn't sleep well. And I had really tight joints, especially my hips. So I went to my JIN SHIN JYUTSU help book and looked up what's good for tight hips, and it said do a liver flow. So I simply lied there in bed and did a liver flow. And I mean, in no time at all, that tension and that pain just eased off. So it's just simple. It's just beautiful, and it works. There's hardly anything like JIN SHIN JYUTSU as far as being so effective and so quick. Master Murai, he would call the hands and the feet, if you like. You could use your feet, which is not as comfortable or easy, but the hands, he called them the jumper cables. Well, when I heard jumper cables, I thought of, well, when you apply jumper cables, you have a battery or a source of electricity that you're trying to support something else, another battery or another vehicle. But then there was some discussion as well, are your jumper cables, are you actually giving your energy? And it doesn't quite work that way, but I do believe that to align yourself with that smiling, compassionate, kind, loving energy, that well-being, is a plus. It is a help when you apply your hands to yourself or to somebody else. And in many healing disciplines, they talk about posture. And I do think posture is important because it aligns your energy. And if you're holding a correct posture, you can sit there longer and be more comfortable. So I believe that's a plus while applying your jumper cables to yourself or someone else. And some would say with your posture to put the tongue at the roof of your mouth. This is something that some energy worker people say it helps connect your own energy to circulate better. So I think little things like that, your attitude, your posture, breathing in a relaxed way. My first class was with Philomena Dooley 30 years ago in Scottsdale, and I was so on fire with the beauty and amazing teachings of JIN SHIN JYUTSU that the very next month I drove down to Dallas, which is about a 4-hour drive, and spent 5 wonderful days with Wayne Hackett, another senior teacher. And in that session, an older guy, probably someone about my age now, he said that he found it works he felt like he got quicker results if he would stay with his breath, breathing nice, relaxed inhales and exhales. And he found that was helpful. And I remembered that, but in JIN SHIN JYUTSU, they talk about not really teaching people a whole lot about technique. And I get that. You don't want to give an art to the world and say, and this is the way you have to do this art. So I love that. But I also believe that you can play with different ideas and learn what works for you, because you're the artist. You are your own authority. And by applying different ideas and different techniques, I guess you have to say, or different things that make it, that work for you, I think it's all valid. Any comments on technique or how you, what you found that might help?
No
Recently,
reply.
that's okay. Recently, one senior teacher, one of the three senior, the early teachers, this teacher mentioned in a phone call, it was just real brief, but they said to, while you're sitting there at the table, to have the top of your head pointing up rather than leaning over. And that to me told me to, to work with the posture, to work up my posture. And I think a lot of teachers will say in different therapies that by having your spine straight and your top of your head exposed to the sky, that will help move your own energy or open your own channels up. So he wasn't specific why he said that, but I thought that was kind of curious too. So when I talk about JIN SHIN JYUTSU to people, it may be such a new phrase to them, and I explain what the words mean. But I sometimes refer to JIN SHIN JYUTSU as a polarity therapy. There are other therapies. I wouldn't say they're like JIN SHIN JYUTSU, but they're about putting the hands on different places on the body. It's not as sophisticated and as complete and as in-depth as JIN SHIN JYUTSU, but saying the word polarity, I think, helps them understand that it's working with the body and two hands normally on the body as a polarity to move the energy, the life force, to let things clear. So working with the self-help or the self-care, I've had the opportunity to work with some children a while back. And I didn't need to go into all the details about JIN SHIN JYUTSU with them. It's just too much, but we would sit and I would say, well, let's just hold our thumb for a while. And let's just drop our shoulders, holding our thumbs. And you may have some worries. You may worry about something. You may worry about some person. But let's just breathe and let that worry relax and hold your thumb. And I would work with a little something called Tong Len, which is basically feeling a difficult feeling as you inhale and exhale a kind, loving, spacious feeling. So with the children, we would hold a thumb or hold our thumbs and breathe and inhale and feel any worries on the inhale and exhale, kind, loving, helpful feelings. And then we would go to, with each digit, we would do our fears and our angers and our sadness and our trying too hard or too much going on. So that was quite effective. And I'll remind us of the 36 breaths taught in Shin Shin Jyutsu. What's a convenient process for me when I sit to do the 36 breaths is to hold a thumb for 3 breaths, and then each finger for 3 breaths, and then go through the other hand. That's 10. 10 times 3 is 30, and then place the fingertips on each palm and breathe for 6 more. That's just another suggestion. Makes sense. So I imagine everybody on this Zoom is quite familiar with the self-help books. I want to just review the first one that Mary Burmeister put out, book 1. It's simple but amazing. And a really cool thing about book 1 that I don't see taught anywhere else in other books is that it does an elaborate or more of a complex way to hold the fingers working with emotions. Are you familiar with that? Like simply, rather than just holding the thumb, let me find an example here. For worry, you can hold the thumb for a while and then wrap your fingers around the middle finger for a while, and then finally hold the little finger for a while. And that's more of the elaborate, long version of holding the fingers for worry. And the positive side of the worry is you're working for fairness, centering, compassion, and in the Eastern healing arts, they say that the ability to make music is often very helpful for what we call first depth. Acupuncture would call it the earth element. So the ability to make music is another thing to add to that. So book 1, book 2, as you probably know, her self-help book, full of a lot of great ideas, things that we sometimes forget, but it takes you through all the safety energy locks and what each lock helps. People don't often know about the book 3, which is Fun with Fingers and Toes. And it's very well done. And it's just got so much good information about the hands and the position that you can put with the palms to work with the body in different ways with the palms on top of each other. Talks about different ideas about jumper cabling. And it's just a beautiful book. It gives explanations of what each toe and each finger work with. It's an amazing book. There's even a 4th small Mary self-help book, and it's called Fun with Happy Hands. And it is for young people, very, very young people. So I don't know if you've ever seen this. I'm sure it's still available. And it's about simple ways that a young child can pick this up and learn how to hold their own body to support their healing energy. So it works really well. And there's many books by great teachers and in the JIN SHIN JYUTSU world. And one that I thought I should share is, you've probably seen this one. It's called JIN SHIN JYUTSU for Your Animal Companion. And it's a very rich book with color photos of dogs, cats, horses, gerbils, birds, rabbits, and so forth to help our animal friends. And then I forgot the copyright of this book. Let me quickly look it up. A huge milestone in the JIN SHIN JYUTSU world came along with, in 1997, it was first published. This is, so Mary Burmeister has, I believe, the 3 children, Terry?
2.
3 and 2 boys. And David married one of the bright students in Mary Burmeister's world, and that was Alice. And so Alice Burmeister, David's wife, produced this book, which was, it just shook the JIN SHIN JYUTSU world because of its brilliancy and beauty and so much information, and it's so well put. And it actually is a combination of books 1, 2, and 3 that Mary wrote. It doesn't have everything that Mary put in there, but it does have most of that, and it expounds upon a lot, and it's beautiful. And it's just so good. And one of the coolest things about this book is that it has lots and lots of testimonials. I believe there's a testimonial written for each energy lock to give you a sample of how effective and how powerful these locks are. So it is a must-have. And by the way, I went to a local, I think we call them Kinko's FedEx here, and had them put on a spiral binding so that it's easy just to flop open. Oh, here's an old photograph. See if you can see it. Can you see that?
Yeah, it's a little blurred, but you
Yeah,
can make out the instructors.
It's it was when there was just 3 teachers, and this was in Boulder, and this is when they brought in 5 more teachers. And there's Jed Swartz and Matthias and Susan Schwartz. Anyway, quite a group. No, it was not Susan Schwartz. What's Susan's name in Boulder?
Oh, Susan Brooks.
Yeah, Brooks. And Lynn Pfluger. I had the beauty, Lynn has passed on, but she was a bright star, beautiful, beautiful soul. And I had the gift to myself to spend a few days with her as an intern, or a, what do they call that when you go out and you have a teacher? Barry, do you know?
Well, I I tend to call it apprentice, but
Yeah, like
apparently
an
that's
apprentice.
apparently that's not technically approved.
There was something, I forget the term, but
Yeah,
anyway, it was with like 4 or 5 of us
Mentor,
worked with
mentor.
Lynn for several days, and it was a wonderful time there in Scottsdale. And you talk about different ideas. I hate to use the word technique, but when Lynn would jumper cable me, I noticed that sometimes the fingers on her left hand would kind of wiggle, kind of like, or palpitate that lock. Not all the time. She would just give a little jiggle and then stop. And one of the other teachers gave me a couple of treatments when I first got into JIN SHIN JYUTSU. And she was brilliant, and I had tremendous results with her treatments. But as soon as my body would gurgle, she would go to the next step. She would be going through these flow patterns, and it was just one after the other. My body would gurgle, and then she would move on to the next one. And anyway, that's just another idea of listening to yourself, paying attention to what you're doing, and experimenting and playing with maybe different ideas on how to help that particular person. Now I want to go to another book on self-care. This was produced by a longtime student of Philomena Dooley, a person that was with her. I think she's been with Philomena for about 30 years. I won't go into her whole story, but she didn't go an official route to become an official JIN SHIN JYUTSU teacher, although she's knowledgeable. She's not on the level, I would say, as the JIN SHIN JYUTSU teachers for the knowledge that they know. But she has a passion and a love for JIN SHIN JYUTSU. And so she produced a book called The Art of JIN SHIN. This is what it looks like. And it's available in the world. And it's a beautiful book because in the second half of the book, it's called the Symptom encyclopedia or something like that. And it gives photographs of people holding their energy locks, jumper cabling themselves from a whole host of issues like coughs and fever and breast issues. And I had an earache one time, rare earache, and it was very painful. I couldn't sleep. I went to this book. I held my body. I forget what it was, 13 and 4 or something like that. And just about 10 minutes later, that earache just calmed right down. So these are things that Mary taught Philomena, and Philomena brought this to the world through Alexis Brink. And it's a fascinating book. Other books have, things that are more of an improvement on some of these things, but it's beautiful because you have these color photographs to quickly take a look at and use. So I mentioned earlier that what Jiro has taught and brought to the world, it has some overlaps, because what I learned in JIN SHIN JYUTSU was a tremendous help for me when I went to acupuncture school, because there was what JIN SHIN calls depths, acupuncture may call elements. And I would think that elements is a poor translation. I think frequency is a better word. And I'd say all the energy locks have their own frequency. If you go to, I highly recommend that people go to a 5-day intensive practitioner workshop. They are so rich and so well taught. And these teachers are just fantastic people with great knowledge of JIN SHIN JYUTSU. And you will not miss the money. You will be grateful you made the effort. And it's just super. You get a real deep understanding of what's going on. I mean, I've been to many classes and I still have a ways to go, but it was so helpful for me to understand. Anyway, the overlap I'm talking about is that you might guess that this wonderful Japanese-American, brilliant, bright soul named Mary Eno Burmeister learned so much from Jiro Murai, and she has so much to teach. She taught and taught and taught. And she became quite well known in healing art circles around the world, and many other circles too. But I was in Scottsdale one time, and I was there to have a treatment and to see Mary. But one of the 2 days I was there, she was busy because she had a special guest in town. It was a retired physician of the Dalai Lama. So that just gives you an example of maybe the level of these beautiful, bright human beings that Mary was in the same circle with, the same realm, same echelon. And so I heard that Mary had some contact with a very talented Chinese man who's still living. I believe he's in his mid to late 90s. I believe he's in California. His name is Hua Ching Ni. Hua Ching Ni. And he's written many books. I would say at least 30. And he's been around in America for a long time. He kind of got kicked out with the Chinese Cultural Revolution from 66 to 76. It was just a time of horror in China. And he got out. And anyway, I have several of his books. But Mary knew of him and they were friends, or they had contact with each other. In fact, Mr. Ni and his wife had at least 2 children. There were twin boys, one named, let's see, what was it? Dao Xing and Mao Xing. There were 2 twins. These boys grew up. They're probably about 60 or so years old now, but they became Western trained medical doctors and Eastern trained medical doctors. And I haven't verified this, you forgive me, but I'm pretty sure what I heard was that David and his wife, Alice, I think they've had, is it 2 children, Harry?
Yes.
Well, according to the story, that she had prenatal and postnatal counseling and support by these Western, Eastern trained twins of Hua Ching Ni. And I have a recommendation. It's outside of the Jin Shin Jyutsu circle, but it's just a little book called Entering the Tao by Mr. Hua Ching Ni. And it's a compilation of many little golden nuggets from many of his books. And I just find it so helpful. And it reflects a lot that is taught in the Jin Shin Jyutsu world. So it's just to say that if you haven't looked around, you'll find that there's lots of, not a lot of deep overlap, but there's some things in Jin Shin Jyutsu that you can find in other cultures or other healing arts in Asia. So I think it's worth to see the commonality and the brilliance of so many different healing arts. So that book is a special book. It's very helpful. Well, from what my experience, Jin Shin Jyutsu is the most brilliant healing art for dealing with difficult attitudes or rough emotions. So I find it's very, very helpful. Like I said, I play with the idea of using a little something from Tibet, and it's probably not unique to Tibet, but it's that thing called Tong Len, where you feel the difficult feeling as you inhale, and it doesn't feel good. You don't want to bring it in. People say, well, I don't want to breathe in the difficult feeling. Well, you already have the difficult feeling. You're just moving it with this powerful feminine yin force of the inhale. You're moving it. So you move it up, and then you exhale with kind, loving, patient, spacious feelings. And that's another modality from another Eastern culture that I think is helpful for moving the emotions. But the brilliance of Jin Shin is that you can hold fingers that really connect very, very well. And it works so well. Let's see on my notes. I'm looking here if I've kind of touched on. Oh, another beautiful thing. And this is there are parallels with this too. I first learned in Jin Shin Jyutsu that Jiro was teaching that if you have a issue with, for example, your left knee, that you can work and hold your right elbow. And years later, I met a very well-trained Chinese acupuncturist, and he had a following, and he traveled the world and taught what he called the balanced method. And in the balanced method was treating acupuncture meridians on opposite joints, like opposite, wrist that goes with your ankle. You can treat left shoulder, right hip. And then I was listening to someone on YouTube about Qigong work, which is energy work. It's very much, Jin Shin Jyutsu is you could call it a Qigong because it's energy work or energy cultivation, energy movement. And he was saying that if you have a pain in your left shoulder, to massage and work your right shoulder. And I thought that was interesting. He said, just give it a try, and it may loosen and let go of the tension in the opposite shoulder. So I love that opposites thing. It works very well. I've used it a lot, and I've used it on myself. And usually, well, almost always, say someone has a left knee issue, then I'll work on I'll do jumper cabling on their right elbow, but I usually work around that energy lock number 19. And yes, there will be a very tender place in the elbow the person didn't even know about. And it's actually related to the other knee, the opposite knee. So you can work it a little bit and then gently hold it. I know that Mary and some Jin Shin Jyutsu practitioners would really want to work that lock and go in deeply. But others were very much like little butterflies sitting on your skin, very, very light. I had sessions by the wonderful angel Pat Meadows, And she often was very, very light touch, but she just would send me to the moon with her treatments. I mean, it was amazing. So again, you can play with what might work for your particular unique being and how you work with other beings, how that works. So, gosh, I've talked about mostly everything I brought up. Oh, another example of overlap. I thought this was cool. I had studied some books from a wonderful, he's long time, one of the most famous Qigong masters in the West, named Mantak Chia, like Chia Pet, but Mantak Chia. And he just has lots of wonderful books, but he and many, many, many other teachers in that tradition teach something called the microcosmic orbit, which you put the tongue at the roof of your mouth, and then you exhale down the front like JIN SHIN JYUTSU, and inhale up the back. And you, with your mind and your eyes closed, you're working with moving the energy down the front and up the back just with your breath. And so they call it the microcosmic orbit, MC, microcosmic. And what else? What else is MC? Main, central. I thought that was a lovely little cosmic joke that we're using the same energy really, but we just call it something different. So, well, can I add anything else or anything else come up? Do I stir anything?
Als je lang in het ziekenhuis bent, die ben ik eigenlijk geweest.
Hello, is there someone wanting to ask Mark a question? Anna? Janice, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I have a question.
There
So
you go.
one of the things I struggle with is, sorry about my heater noise in the back. When I'm very fatigued, it's almost physically painful to do self-help or to give a session to someone else. It's not always true, but I can be in periods where it's just very difficult. And I can be in other periods where I just really enjoy doing self-help. I enjoy working with other people. So anyway, a few words of wisdom on that would be welcome.
You're saying that at times you're just in this mood or this state of being or this spiritual sense of it, things are just complex and I don't want to go to the trouble.
No, it's like I mean, I struggle with chronic fatigue issues
Yeah,
and some other chronic illnesses. And so sometimes it's just physically painful as well as I feel fatigued when I work on myself or when I work on someone else. And, you know, if someone's giving me a JIN SHIN JYUTSU session, then usually that's easier. I can just sort of breathe through whatever intensity, although sometimes my liver meridian gets really annoyed and it just gives me the fidgets that makes my whole body tense up. So that's a whole other topic. But anyway, just
well, my first thought was you need some body movement. I mean, that was what came to me first. That was my first, I was just struck with, if I'm in that position or that state, I think movement, go for a walk or just move around the house, jump up and down. In certain types of Qigong lessons, they'll have you just stand your legs shoulder width apart and they just let you, they'll pull your shoulders up and drop your shoulders down and sigh a couple, 3 times real loud, let all that sighing energy out. And then they just have you bounce up and down with your knees. You're bending your knees and you're not flinching anything else. It's a way to kind of loosen up things, loosen up the energy in your body. And that may be something that would be very helpful if you can't get outside or the weather is not right. But just, I'd say move around. And, when I hear chronic fatigue syndrome, of course, we all know how helpful the spleen flow is for that. And you probably know, but Mary made a point in her self-help teachings that to help your body would be the spleen, the stomach, and the bladder. All of the flow patterns help the body, of course, but
Right.
she's saying on a daily existence, she's using those because on a daily existence, it's often overthinking, which comes with worry. That's a big thing in our culture. We're unfortunately, since we're little children, we're taught to solve problems and think too much, which is, we need to step back from that. But
Yeah.
so that's the stomach and the spleen. And then the bladder flow is to help let go of fear. She said that's an ongoing constant thing too. So, you know, what you might do, is it Anne? Am I?
Janice.
Oh, Janet. Yeah, well, just the first step of the spleen flow is fabulous. It just works. Just hold that for 5 short minutes. Can really dump a lot of tension in the stomach and tension in the body and let go of some of the fatigue that we carry. What else would you do to help let go of fatigue? I take a hot bath, you know, get some wonderful salts and just let the body just relax. We, as I said before, we're habitually carrying all this fatigue and tension. You know, you're not alone at all. We're all carrying stuff. I take a break from my work as a JIN SHIN JYUTSU practitioner and acupuncturist, and it takes me a few days to let go of some of the tension that I pick up from working over people and all that stuff. So we too often carry fatigue. So does that help you at all, what I've suggested?
Yes, thank you.
So, Mickey, you're talking about when you had a painful left knee. Do you want me to read out what you said, or do you want to speak to Mark? Are you there, Mickey?
Can you hear me?
Mickey?
I see your M. You're there. I heard you. Go ahead. Maybe you can share with that.
Hey, Mickey. Okay, so Mickey was saying in the 90s she was troubled by a painful left knee, and at a JSJ seminar I was advised to hold clear the right safety energy of 3. I have no more pain in my left knee, and when I do, I hold my right 3. I have some perspectives on why that might have worked, but over to you, Mark.
Well, it hit me as very, very, very interesting. I don't know the logic of that, although in JIN SHIN JYUTSU, it's such a beautiful teaching. They teach if you unlock above the waist, you can get results below the waist. And if you unlock below the waist, you can get wonderful results above the waist. So that's what I think of at first when I think of a number 3, a right 3. Again, it's opposite. Opposite is a right. Is that correct? Opposite, right 3 and left knee?
Yes.
Yeah. So there may be that, that polarity thing with the opposites. That's all I can think of. Have you anything to add, Terry?
Well, for sure, 3 begins the mediator, and so you're crisscrossing the body. 3 also represents in TCM, I believe, a lung point. And when you're holding the 19, the opposite 19, that could be on the lung meridian, depending on which side you're holding. And of course, the lung energy is actually bringing in more chi into the body, and it will support kidney, it will release spleen, and it'll unburden liver, which all go through the knee. That would be one perspective.
Yeah, I like that. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Yeah, the lungs are the kind of the leader
Yeah.
of the chi train.
Yeah. Has anyone else got any comments or questions for Mark? I just want to say, Mark, really appreciated how you went through Mary's self-help material there. And you brought up connections, personally, I'd never heard of before. And that was useful information to me. you know, I've no doubt that Mary did have connections with other great teachers. I heard occasionally, you know, names, but I didn't recall any in particular. I just want to say to folks, because Mark has given you a really open-hearted view of the energy arts, he's connected you with the Chinese perspective, Mantak Chia, and other masters. Jin Shin Jyutsu, being Japanese, didn't discount the connection with other Asian healing arts. In fact, Jiro Murai studied the Yellow Emperor, which is the Bible of traditional Chinese medicine. And, you know, although some people would say Jin Shin Jyutsu is an ancient art, it's not. But the principles of Jin Shin Jyutsu are. Master Murai was a synthesizer. He read all these different texts, he experimented. I believe he studied acupuncture too.
Yeah,
And he brought together these threads. And the people that Mark's mentioned in the relationships with perhaps connections with Mary and Alice and David all make perfect sense. So I will just say with all that, don't square your head about any art, because an art is a creative, organic thing. And we can learn from different strands of similar thinking, whether it's Mantak Chi or some other teacher. And, you know, when I worked at the office, I often, for quite obvious reasons, had to keep more or less along the understanding of Mary's and Jiro's teaching. However, there is all these overlapping connections. So thank you for that, Mark.
oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I didn't want to step on any Jin Shin enthusiasts' toes, but I just thought, well, we run into these things. They go, oh, well, I've heard that in Jin Shin Jyutsu, and they're doing something similar. So it's very kind of you to mention that Jiro Murai was such a student of life and experience and reality. You know, as he saw reality, he wanted to go deeper and deeper and deeper, and he did. So I love his example of studying and looking around the corner and seeing what else is over there. So
Yeah, and you know, I think it's a fair thing to say that we may have similar ways of processing information, some of us, and some of us may have uniquely different ways of processing information. And you know, when Mark mentioned Alexis Brink's information, you can also look at Walter Rodriguez Krauss. She has cards with pictures, and what I would say now, through my passage of time of working with the arts, is wherever your heart takes you, follow it, and experiment. I mean, Mary would always say, you know, be your own testimony. You're the artist, as Mark pointed out. So experiment, and if it works for you, then okay, that's wonderful. And maybe you can share that with someone else who's puzzled about something. So this is very refreshing, and it's a pleasure to have Mark. Those of you that are not familiar, Mark has been on before, so if you want to go back and check what he talked about before. But he's a very welcome guest and a very experienced guest, and it's wonderful to have those connections with acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine. What was the name of the chap you said from California that you thought Mary was?
oh yeah, he's a very Chinese name. He's got many books, and you can find him on the internet or Amazon or wherever. It's Hua, H-U-A dash Ching, like C-H-I-N-G, and last name is Ni. Now in Chinese, they always say the last name first.
Uh-huh.
So you would be Matthews Terry.
Yeah.
The family first, and then the individual second. But anyway, this little book is just full of, now, there may be a percent of things that don't make sense to me, or I might steer away from, you know. There's really this style of Taoism is not religious, but every now and then something creeps in. I go, I don't go there. But most of it is just beautiful, well studied wisdom. It's just beautiful, beautiful help. So I thought it was so cool that I heard that Mary knew of and had communicated with this gentleman. They were friends, and that Alice and David were connecting with this man's sons for medical help. I just thought that was so amazing.
Yeah. No, I mean, from what I understood about Mary in my time at the office, Mary was incredibly open to other healing arts. Her main focus, however, was JIN SHIN JYUTSU. I heard that she invited people who were dowsers, which was fun for me because I did a lot of pendulum dowsing in England. I don't do it so much now, but yeah, Mary, so I was told from her sons, had an open mind about the healing arts. She was open. She wanted to learn. Other thing I was curious about, and I can see how it connects with the exhale, inhale, this idea of, inhaling the, we'll just say negative emotion.
Difficult feelings.
Yeah, difficult feelings, and then pushing out or allowing a positive feeling as you exhale. I mean, folks, that marries up very well with the exhale in JIN SHIN JYUTSU, because we're exhaling in order to build. We let go of what we don't need, but we're actually building something new. And that's what Mark was suggesting to me anyway, something more positive. And on the inhale there, that's the purification. That's the cosmic purified energy going up the back there. So that all makes total sense. There's so many ways of looking at how we can use the breath.
Yes.
Experiment is what I would say.
Well, that struck me with my first class in JIN SHIN JYUTSU. Was right away they mentioned that, the breath is the fundamental source of all healing. And it's so true. They said that people with shallow breathing and they exhale only to a certain place on their body, and there was some speculation that may be why they have breast tumors or stomach problems or so forth. In other words, learning to have complete exhales, and then the inhale just comes by itself. It just comes. Learning better breathing. And you hear it now more and more about high blood pressure and nerves and anxiety. If we learn just to breathe, and JIN SHIN JYUTSU, that's one of their main teachings, is that's so helpful. With the Tonglen, I'll tell you real quick, several years ago on a December day, I just felt terribly depressed, and I'm not into that much. I've never been depressed terribly, but this day it just hit me like something had come over me, and I just felt really bad. I felt like I should just go home and pull the covers over my head. I was just miserable. So I thought, oh yeah, I could try that Tonglen. So I held my fingers with JIN SHIN JYUTSU and went into this breathing with the Tonglen, with the feeling my feelings. You really have to feel your feelings. You just can't think about them. You really have to feel what they feel like. And they're uncomfortable, but you have to go through it. And a lot of times the inhale would be like a stuttered, like when you're crying and you're breathing and you're crying and you can inhale, you kind of have that. So that was influencing me, those difficult feelings. But I'm telling you, after about 10 cycles, the feeling just left, just gone. So
Beautiful.
it's
Beautiful. Very helpful. Well, folks, we're more or less at the top of the hour. So I want to really put my hands together in appreciation to Mark.
Thank you.
And for all of you coming to share with him.
Good to see your faces, everybody.
Oh, yeah, let's change the view. Hold on.
I feel very honored to have people jump in, and I can see that no one left. So I was very impressed that people were glad to stay in. Thank you.
Yeah, a few joined late as well. So there you go.
Yeah. Very nice.
So everybody, I'm off for a couple of weeks, on a little trip to the UK. And next Friday, your host will be Beth Lendrum. who's been on before, and she's actually going to introduce a mystery presenter. But I'll give you a clue. It is a JIN SHIN JYUTSU instructor. So
Ooh.
Beth will introduce a JIN SHIN JYUTSU instructor next Friday. So tell your friends, and if they want to sign up, I've already changed the email so you can connect with Beth and she'll give you the Zoom link and everything.
Thank you.
And then I'll return a week later if I'm awake. I think I will be.
It sounds like a lovely journey for you, and safe travels.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Yeah. I always tend to, if I haven't fallen asleep, because I tend to take evening flights so that I can fall asleep. You got your fingers, folks, and
Yeah.
I'm always busy going through the fingers, you know.
Smart.
And talking of safety energy lock 3, as we were earlier, that's the big immune booster, the door that, you know, brings in and strengthens the immune system, brings in the chi there. So, you know, I'll be holding my 3s or probably my middle fingers in case I, you know, bump into somebody. But thank you all for supporting Harmonize2Energize, and please do come along next Friday when Beth's here with the instructor, and look after yourselves, have a good time, rest of the day, rest of the week. And again, thank you, Mark.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I'm sure you have more. I'm sure you do have more.
One day, well, I'll be back.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. So take care. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Yeah. Happy spring.